Welcome. I am here today with Satyarthi Peloquin, who has been creator of myofascial energetic release. He's a body worker with 40 years of experience, taught probably a few thousand people in his career and done hundreds, if not thousands, of individual sessions. And he is a master in the body work. At some point of his life, he was living also at Osho community, and Satyarthi was working directly on Osho, which was enlightened Indian master. So I'd like to ask you, Satyarthi, because it has been probably an amazing experience to work on Osho. How was this experience, and how this came about, and what have you learned from that?
Okay, it's a big subject for me, but I was a disciple of Osho. I have been a disciple of Osho since 1976, so it's 43 years or something. And in 2 different times I did body work on Osho, and I did body work on Osho because he had pain in his body. And I was called in to do sessions with him. So it was an incredible honor to start with, you know, and it was an amazing experience for me, probably the most amazing experience of my whole life. It's hard to understand that unless you're a disciple of a master like Osho, to be able to touch him and be that close to him. First of all, Osho had a depth that I've never experienced in another human being. He was an awakened being, and he was an intellectual genius at the same time, and one of the most prolific speakers. You know, he has 600 books, which his lectures become transcribed into books. Still more and more of his lectures are becoming transcribed into books. So coming in to do sessions on him, I moved into an energy field that I had never experienced before. A one of depth and peace and intensity, and at the same time an innocence and a love coming from this man. He shared that an awakened being has an incredible innocence of a child, and at the same time the wisdom of the ages and the depths of the universe. And that's exactly how I experienced it, being with him in this way. Doing body work with him, he was very open and very innocent. He was like a child in some ways, and yet I knew at the same time he was the total authority. I was getting much more from the session than he was, yeah, and that was obvious. But he needed my method because his body had different areas that were in pain, so I could support him to come out of pain, which I did actually. I worked on him in 2 different times, one time in the late 70s and then again in the 90s. And I think I did about 50 sessions on him. Sometimes twice a day I would do sessions. He loved to have the sessions. He was very, very sensitive in that he could feel exactly what was going on. And so as I was working on him, he would give me feedback and ask me questions. And he would say, there's a pain point there. Does everybody have pain points there? And I would say, well, it's a common place for pain point. And he again would say, well, it's on the right side of my body. Does that have something to do with the left side of my brain? He was constantly inquiring and asking me questions, I think, to stimulate me to learn and to discover and to look into all of these questions that he was answering. I thought he was really supporting me as a teacher of body work to learn much more about body work. Now, working with him, he was in such a deep space of meditation and presence that I would fall into a deep place of meditation and presence and love, because he was generating so much love from his heart, and it was so childlike, and it was so easy to be in love with him when I was working with him. You know, I just wanted to care for him and give to him. He just brings that out in people that are close and are caring for him. I had many different experiences working with him. Sometimes he would trick me, you know. He would one time I was working on him, and I was working on his chest and his legs, and he was on his back, and I wanted to turn him over to his stomach. So I looked him in the eyes. I said, "Osho, turn over." And he just looked at me, like I wasn't there. And I said again, "Osho, turn over." And he just kept looking at me, not doing anything. And I thought, okay, I'll play this game. You know, I don't know what it is, but I'll just do what he's doing. So I just kept looking. And we had this long period of silence and just looking at each other. And then I said again at the end of it, "Osho,